FCPS has been able to remain financially secure despite all the economic woes of the state and nation. What will you do to ensure the financial stability and security that it continues?
I think that, as I said earlier, that this community wants to make sure that we are good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. And I think that is one of the a great responsibility of the superintendent. I think you continue to look at how the budget is being developed. You continue to look at how those resources are allocated. I think you have to evaluate the allocation of those funds. If what we have allocated them to, is it making a difference for teaching and learning? And I think that you have to evaluate to see what kinds of things that you can take off the table. If they're not working, if they're not impacting student teaching and learning, then do we need to continue it? I think you have an opportunity during these lean times to look to see if you can reallocate some dollars. It's very important that you have a sound structural budget, but it's also, you have to make sure that you have some money in case that there are some crises that might arise.
What is your plan for helping FCPS prepare for the new Kentucky Core Academic Standards, Senate Bill 1 implementation, and the new end-of-course assessments, which will begin in 2011-2012 school year?
I think that a lot of the work with Senate Bill 1 has already started to take place. One of the things when the legislation was created, the one thing that was resounding across the state was that we wanted to make sure that we provided enough professional development for our teachers. We want to make sure that when we implement these standards in next school year, that teachers are ready to do that, they have enough training to do that, because we want them to make sure that they're successful in implementing these standards. There are going to be some challenges because of the shift in content. We have to address that. We have many teachers who have had some training already. The district would need to make sure that we're providing enough time for them to implement the standards, but also some time for teachers in the district to come back to the table and say what's working, what's not working, and then allow them some time to tweak what it is that they need to do differently. I think that it's going to be very important that we continue to support that and to allocate funding and to allocate time so that they can do it and do it very well.
What experience have you had in improving the staff ratio so that it reflects the diversity of the student population?
Recruiting minority or diversifying the staff in the state of Kentucky has been a challenge. It's not anything new to Fayette County. I shared that when I had my first principalship in 2000, that I had no males on my staff and no minorities. And so it was like, whoa. However, it was very important to our staff that we tried to diversify. It was as hard as finding a male elementary teacher as it was a minority. But I personally, if it's important to us, and if it's important to you that you diversify your staff, then I always say that if it's a priority, then you got to spend time on it and you got to spend money on it. So we have to think about the strategies that we can use to diversify our staff. The issue that we face in the state of Kentucky is that we don't have a lot of minorities going into teaching like we did 10 or 15 years ago, because minority individuals can do other things other than teach. And at one time, that's all we could do. Now our best and brightest minority staff individuals are going into other fields and occupations. And that's a good thing, but it is hurting the teaching ranks. So I think that we can think about how we can begin to talk to young people who are still in our high schools about the importance of going into the teaching field, give them an opportunity to maybe do some interns in our schools so they can see the importance of teaching. And I think we're going to have to rebuild the pipeline of minority individuals before we will have some success in recruiting a diverse staff.
Kids with special needs, what do you plan on doing to ensure that kids with special needs have every opportunity to succeed?
I think that's a culture that we have to create. that we have equal access and opportunity for all of our students, regardless of their challenges that they may have, regardless of what language they speak or what color their skin. I think that we have to create a culture that we ensure that they are getting the same content and the same rigorous teaching in the same rigorous classrooms as all of our other students. I think that sometimes we think that our particular students with disability challenges cannot learn at the same level. Well, they can, but we might have to put some support systems and interventions around them, and it may take them a little longer. But that's the culture that we have to create in order for them to be successful in our school district.
How will your past experiences and understandings of what goes on in the classroom help our many students with such diverse needs, and what would you do differently that hasn't already been tried here?
Could you repeat that, please?
Sure. How will your past experiences and understandings of what goes on in the classroom help our many students with such diverse needs, and what would you do differently that hasn't already been tried here?
I think that we have to continue to convey and believe that when you want high expectations for all students, that it really means all students. So you raise the floor, but you also raise the ceiling. We have struggling students, but we also have gifted academically students as well. So to meet the needs of all of our students, we have to differentiate instruction. We have to allow teachers other opportunities to teach students. We have to understand that it does not necessarily mean that it has to be the sage on the stage, that the teacher has to be standing in front of the student in order for them to be educated. We have to learn to use technology and to allow it to help us to educate our students. We have many modalities that we can use. We have to understand the learning styles of the students, and sometimes we have to use technology in our instruction, adaptive technology, and give some of our students a different look than just a classroom setting with large groups of students. So I think we're going to have to really think about the specific individual learning needs of every single student.
You mentioned gifted and talented, and that leads to our next question. FCPS provides unique and rigorous opportunities for students identified both academically and in the arts as gifted. What have you done in the past to support appropriate services for gifted students in the district you've served, and what goals do you have in mind in order to help this system provide gifted students with the services they need?
I think we have to look at our gifted and talented students as we do some of our struggling students, that they have very specific needs and that we have to challenge them academically. And some of the things that we have done in Clark County is that we do have a pull-out program for our elementary students. We try to give our high school students an opportunity to have differentiated instruction, and we understand that it's not just about AP classes and it's not just about those types of opportunities for students, but we have also implemented dual credit. We have in our school district now that our students can graduate from our high school with 15 college hours when they graduate. Our school board just passed a policy about 2 months ago where we have removed the stipulation that a student has to be in our high school for 8 semesters. We have just implemented a policy called early graduation. We understand that if a student has mastered the content and they are academically gifted, why would you keep them in high school for 4 years? So we have established some of those mindsets and policies in place so that when those students have the ability to move on, then we are accelerating their learning.
An increased number of students have not been successful in the traditional classroom setting, so how do you view alternative education as a viable way of reaching the needs of students in this particular situation and reducing the number of school dropouts?
When we look at alternative education, I think oftentimes we have to define what we mean by that, because an alternative education doesn't necessarily have to mean that it's in a building. What we're saying is that the traditional high school or the traditional middle school didn't work for specific kids, and what are we going to do other than that? I think we have to look at trying some online classes. I don't think that we have taken advantage of KVHS. I think that we need to look at do all of our students have to come to school from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock? I think an alternative education could mean that some students might need to come only from 9 to 1, or some students may come and receive their education from 1 to 4. I think we have to think out of the box. We've got to be creative. We've got to be innovative, and so we can address and meet the needs of all of our students. When we talk about reducing the dropout rate, I think oftentimes students disengage because school has not felt good to them. The traditional school from 8 to 4 is just not going to meet the needs of our particular students. I think we have to look closely at what we can do with technology. Why can't the students stay at home and get an Algebra 1 credit or an Algebra 2 credit? The goal is that they've mastered the standard. We will still be doing the assessment to see if they matched it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to come to our buildings in order to do that. And I think when we can address the needs of our students emotionally, physically, and socially, then we can keep students in school and they won't drop out.
How will you work to ensure that every student has the benefit of a high-quality teacher? The one thing that I like to establish here is that there is a difference in a high-quality teacher and a highly effective teacher. I think when we talk about high quality, that's the federal definition for having a teacher that is certificated in the field that they're teaching. I think we have to go beyond that if we want to ensure that the teachers are impacting learning, and teachers have to be highly effective. And when we talk about highly effective teachers, they know how to meet the needs of every student. They're teaching to the students' learning styles. They're using different modalities. They are doing cooperative learning. They're doing flexible grouping. And the biggest thing I think that happens with a highly effective teacher is they have established that relationship with each and every student, and the student knows that they care about their success in their classroom.